Hello again guys. I hope you are doing great. Previously, we discussed about delegates, action, and func in C#. If you did not attend those discussions, I recommend you to watch them now. The events in C#, which we are going to discuss in this discussion, rely on the idea of delegates. So let's start with an introduction to the events. An event in C# is a function member. An event can be raised by a class in which it is defined. This class is called as publisher. Other classes which are interested to know when an event is raised can subscribe to the event. These classes are called as subscribers. So, an event helps notify the subscribers when something of their interest have occurred. The publisher class has the control over when the event can be raised. The subscriber gets notified when the event is raised by the publisher. Then how to handle that event means what action to take when event is raised is up to the subscriber.
That is very interesting, Mark. Can you start explaining with an example?
Sure. We will create a timer class, which will raise an event after every certain milliseconds. Note that C# libraries already have timer classes, which you can use if you really need a timer for your application. This exercise we are doing is just to learn how an event works. So, let's get started with the publisher class. First of all, we will define an instance of event handler. This is based on the delegate event handler, which takes two parameters and returns void. The first parameter is the object, which represents the sender, that is the object which raised the event. The second parameter is of type EventArgs, which contains additional data, if any required, to give more information about the raised event. The syntax of the event handler is public, delegate, void, event handler, and in parentheses, object sender, and EventArgs. You do not need to define this delegate, as it is predefined in the system namespace. So, let's create an instance of event handler delegate, named timer event. The syntax is public, event, event handler, timer event. Here, public is access modifier. Event is C# keyword. Event handler is the delegate, and timer class is the name of the instance of event handler. Note that, although the name of the delegate is event handler, it does not actually handle the event. The handling of the event is actually done by the subscriber class. Handling the event means taking some action when the event is raised. Now we need a method in this class, which checks if the event has any subscribers. And if there are any, then this method raises the event.
Mark, how can we know if there are any subscribers to the event? We did not even write any class to subscribe yet.
The indication to an event having any subscribers is that if any methods are associated with the event handler's instance. Remember that it is a delegate, which can have 0, 1, or more methods associated with it. So, we can null check this object, timer event. If timer event is null, then there are no subscribers. If it is not null, then we can invoke the delegate. Invoking the timer event delegate means raising the event. Does that make sense to you now? So, this method we are talking about just checks if timer event is not null, then invoke the timer event. This method, onTimerEvent, which we defined in the publisher class, takes one argument, of type EventArgs. EventArgs class is the base class, which represents the classes for containing the event data. The base class indeed does not include any data. As we are not sending any custom event data from our timer event, we are using the EventArgs base class. When invoking the delegate timer event, we pass two arguments, this and e. This means the sender is the timer class type object, and e is the EventArgs type. In this way, the subscribers get the information about the sender and any custom data sent when the event is invoked. Now we have an event which can be raised if there are any subscribers. We need some mechanism by which a subscriber can first start the timer, so that the publisher can determine when to raise the events. For this, we will write a method, startTimer. This method will take two parameters. The first one is of integer type, wait millisecond, which represents the time in millisecond, which is duration of timer. A timer would normally run until you stop it by calling another method. But for simplicity, we will run it only for certain iterations. So, the second parameter represents an integer, count, which defines how many times the event should be raised. Instead of calling the method as startTimer, we better call it as runTimer, which makes more sense now. Because we are not just starting the timer, but also ending it after certain iterations. So, here is the logic of runTimer method. After the specified time in millisecond, we are simply raising the event by calling the onTimerEvent method. This method, onTimerEvent, in turn checks for any subscribers and raises the event. To wait for that certain milliseconds of time, we are using a sleep method in the thread class. This thread.sleep is popularly used to take breaks in the C# programs. This waiting, and then raising the event, continues until an integer, I, which starts from 0, and increments by 1 after every iteration, reaches the count variable's value -1. If you do not know how while loop used here works, don't worry, there is lot more content in the .NET study room to explore, which will cover all these things. Stay with us by subscribing to the channel, so you can get to know when new content is published here.
Mark, I have a question. In the onTimerEvent method, we used a parameter of type eventArgs. You said it is base class for defining the event's data, and base class has no data. So, how do we add data to this class?
By inheritance, 0. You can derive the base class eventArgs to create your custom eventArgs class. In that class, you define some fields or properties, which represent the data required for the event. We will sure see how that works, just in a while. Before that, let's have some subscribers to our timer class, and see how the event is listened to, and handled by the subscribers.
Fine, Mark. Tell us how to listen to the events. And also, tell us what to do when we no longer want to listen to the event.
To listen to an event, we have to subscribe to the event. For that, let's first create an instance of the publisher class. Timer class, tc, equal to, new, timer class, parenthesis. This is how we instantiate any class in C#. Next step, is to subscribe to the event, timerEvent, by attaching a method to this delegate. We will use lambda expression to attach an anonymous method to the event delegate. tc, dot, timerEvent, plus equal to, in brackets the two parameters, O, and E. Because it is a lambda expression, the types of these parameters are automatically inferred. Then the lambda operator, followed by the body of anonymous method, terminated by semicolon. Here, we just print to console, the current system time, whenever the timer event is raised by the publisher. Now that our publisher has a subscriber, we will let the timer start and run, by calling the runTimer method. For testing purpose, let's pass the wait millisecond parameters value as 100, means timer event should be raised every 100 milliseconds. And let's run the timer for 10 iterations, by providing the second parameters value as 10. When you run the program, you will see the output, as shown here. The timer event was raised every 100 milliseconds, by the publisher. The subscriber handled the event, by printing the current system time to the console. Guys, the events are largely used in the UI applications, to handle the user input to the UI elements, like buttons, lists, etc. And also, events are useful, when your applications wants to receive some data from any kind of hardware device. In the very next discussion, we will see how to raise the events, with some custom event data. Stay tuned. Thank you for joining in. Did you find the content useful? If you like our discussions, then please do not forget to subscribe the channel.
Also, like and share the videos, and feel free to comment.
This is really going to help our channel grow, and reach to all those who are getting started with C#, like we do. Thank you.